Oh, go then. Joined by the legendary Emilia Thompson, who is an avid Apotheo user, also obviously a coach, mentor, educator, speaker, everything underneath that goes with it. So I am honoured to be here to speak to you about how you do things. So thank you for joining me. Anything I need to add to that intro if people don't know who you are?
No, I think that's all good. Thanks.
Cool. I'm sure that a lot of people within this group are going to know who you are anyway. And it's cool for us to be able to get a little bit of an insight into what you do, who you are, how you've built things and how you run some of the coaching aspects and how you integrate the software like Apotheo into that. Because I'm sure other coaches will benefit massively from knowing that. Maybe give a little bit of background about yourself and then the type of coaching you do, and then we can dig into what it is, how that works.
Sure. I'll kind of just give Cliff notes, otherwise I'll just talk about myself for hours. But yeah, I work predominantly with people who are trying to improve their relationships with food or body in some way. My background is super academic. I used to be a lecturer in sport nutrition. I've got a master's, PhD in like physiology and sport nutrition. And so I used to teach and then went into the bodybuilding world myself and found that the evidence-based practice there was pretty woeful, and found that through my own discovery of like extreme dieting and what that does to your relationship with food, that I realized that nobody in the fitness space was talking about that side of things. And so when I experienced it for myself, I kind of just delved into the research when I was teaching around what happens with extreme diets physiologically, psychologically, etc., and started talking about a lot of that stuff. And kind of, I guess, naturally, as in response to that, I started working with people who had similar experiences to me. And now I work with a team of coaches, ETPHD coaches, and we all collectively specialize in supporting people with dysfunctional eating habits or poor body image. But each of the coaches that I work with have a specific niche that they work with underneath that overall umbrella. And we kind of pride ourselves on being like one of the first companies to work in like compassionate evidence-based coaching and really working on like that kind of relationship with food term that when I first started, nobody really knew what a relationship with food was. You'll remember back in the day. And so that's kind of where I am now. And I also run EIQ Nutrition with Emma Story-Gordon, which is an online nutrition course specifically for personal trainers and coaches who want to incorporate this type of work with their clients as well.
Everything. Yeah, I'm really obviously I've known of you and then known you in and around like the areas of what you've been doing and followed it in terms of the growth of everything that's happened. How did you go about building that team of your ETPHD coaches? How did that happen?
So it was never in my plan. Like, I'm not a 5-year planner. I'm okay, what's important for the next 6 months to a year. So it was never in my plan. But I had found myself just really naturally, I never did any sort of business growth focused work ever when I first started. It was very natural growth, organic growth for me. And I found myself in a position where I'd kind of got to about, I think at the time, like 50 clients. And for me, that was very, very max in terms of the type of work that I was doing. It was like, that was full time. And I realized like I wanted to work with more people. I didn't really know how to do that. So I had a client at the time who'd worked with me for a couple of years, and she was a nutritionist and a personal trainer, and she was an incredible human being. And I sort of started to think, oh, maybe I think she would be a good coach in this realm. And so I kind of started, I will say this, like I kind of started to like try and mold her a little bit. Not mold her, because she didn't need molding. She was perfect as she was, right? But I was kind of like, oh, what are your future goals? What do you think you might want to do? And do you use social media much? And kind of those conversations within our coaching. And then I met her at a conference properly, and I sort of said, look, I need someone else to come in and work, and I think you're amazing. And luckily for me, she said yes, and that was Anna. And Anna's been working with me for, I think it's about maybe 4 years or something now, I think. And she's head coach. She's just incredible. And she kind of just took on everybody that I like said, oh, you can work with Anna. She just took it and ran with it, and just incredible. And then over time, like she got full, and then we were like, okay, well, gosh, we might need to bring someone else on. And we took on at that time a guy. It didn't work out, just difference. It wasn't because he was a man, it just didn't really work out. We kind of tried, it just wasn't right. So we did have that point where it didn't work. So he left. And then I ended up taking on another client who, again, Coach Georgia, incredible. I kind of was finishing her master's in nutrition, and I was like, you're incredible. And then really shortly after that, really, I kind of put out, I needed more coaches again. And so I just put out, I need one more coach. And there were about 4 or 5 girls that were like, 4 girls at the time where I was like, you are all incredible. And that was Steph Lynn, Denai, and Becca. And then I was like, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to take a punt. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I can only guarantee clients for one person. Screw it. I'm just going to go for it because they're all great. I took them all on. And then, now we've now also got Rosalind, who's a dietitian. And the amazing thing is each of the girls, although everyone kind of started on the same place of like, I want to help people with disordered eating, they've all got unique personalities such that if someone applies to work with me now, I can tell immediately from the type form that they fill in exactly what personality they will be matched with, and I can send them exactly to the right coach just by the words that they use. And now, for example, like Georgia specializes in perimenopause and Steph specializes in neurodivergence, and so they've all got their own specialities. And I would say now to this point, they're all better than me at their various, like at how they coach, which kind of hurts my ego, but it's also fantastic. So now when I first started, when people applied to work with me and I had a team, they would be like, oh, I kind of wanted to work with you. Whereas now it's like, no one really wants to work with me anymore. Like, honestly, when people apply now, they automatically are like, oh, I was thinking, Denai might be the right person, or Rosalind might be the right person. I'm like, okay, great. See you later then. So it's great. Like, they're all fantastic.
That's amazing. I like that. That obviously the growth aspect of how you've done it, but then also from seeing how they position themselves on social media, absolutely right in terms of all individual in regards to how they come across, and they also all complement what you stand for as a brand and a business, which I think is really special in order to be able to have created that thing. And I think it's the right thing for you for people to be like, the people you bring on to be better than you at what it is you're originally doing. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it is, but it's just like the ego hit of like, oh, I'm just gonna have to, but that's a core value of mine. Of for me, when I took on a team, it wasn't about me making more money or me getting like an ego hit of anything. It was me having more impact for sure, but just as equally important to me is helping each of them grow into like what they want to be and supporting them to build what they want within that overall umbrella. So like for me, it's just as rewarding for one of them to be in this coaching position where they're full and they're maybe starting a bit of a side hustle and all these things. For me, that's just as rewarding as it is like to support someone with binge eating or HA or whatever it is.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that. Seeing the aspect of being able to bring a coach and develop like their skills and abilities to then work with people is I find that massively rewarding now. But something I wanted to ask before we get into like the Apotheo stuff was the background and your messaging around and the way you position stuff on like the compassionate side of coaching and that side of things. How do you find that when you come up against the people who are more like, say, the transformation style coaches and businesses? Did you find it difficult, or how have you come about that?
I think for sure initially, like I used to, not often, but I have posted transformation pictures a long time ago. And so initially I was struggled with it because I was like, okay, well, this is what sells, this is what gets engagement, this is what brings people in. If I put a transformation picture up, I'll meet someone where they are, I can bring them in, and then I can mold them into like what's a healthful way of thinking, right? And I kind of convinced myself that was the right thing to do at the time. Now I look back and I think that wasn't the right thing, but when you know better, you do better, right? I think for me, I kind of had to get to the point, and I find this a lot with business there, I have to accept that not that many people like me or like what I do, and I can be quite triggering for a lot of people, and in the sense of how I market, how I talk. The kind of more hardcore fitness space doesn't really love the way that I market and the way that I talk, and then the anti-diet space doesn't really like how I market and how I talk. And so I've kind of had to accept that people that I respect in both spaces don't respect me back. And that's some people do, right? Don't get me wrong, but there are definitely people where they, like, for example, the hardcore fitness people will think that I am, you know, slating everyone that does meal plans, and sometimes I am, but like they take that, like, they get very defensive over it. And then on the anti-diet side, you know, if I'm talking about something and I'm showing up in a bikini, they don't like it because I have a certain body type that kind of doesn't fit the bias of potentially what it should fit. And so I have backlash with that. So I think for me, like, I found it quite difficult initially to figure out how to market and how to talk about what I do. And I was very lucky, to be honest, when I started, because no one else was doing it. I fell into the niche quite quickly, and I didn't have to really market initially, apart from just talking about what I knew. So I was very, very lucky in that. And only in the last 3 or 4 years, where like I've got a team now, I've had to think about how am I communicating this and how am I actually marketing and how am I like generating leads and stuff like that. Only then have I had to start thinking about it and really developing all of these other ways to talk about the work that I do without using things like transformation pictures and stuff. And it's a hard one because I know that I'm a last resort. And to be honest, that's kind of where my marketing is now. It's like, you'll come to work with me. Most people apply to us and work with us like 4 times before they actually sign up. People will have told me regularly. In fact, there's a girl that I'm mentoring at the moment, and she said, I remember I unfollowed you because I found you really like triggering and I didn't agree with what you were saying. But obviously then I refollowed you and now I'm mentoring her. So like, there's definitely an element of people not always being ready to hear what I want to hear, what I'm saying, and so they don't like it. But again, I've just had to get really comfortable of being like, I'm probably going to piss people off, and that's and there's no right way of doing it. Like, there's no stock way of, like, you know how, like, you'll see this, right? And you've done this before, like, you know, when you share things like from Apotheo, it's like things clients say. It'll be something that say, when I first started sharing that wasn't a thing. That wasn't a thing that like people would say things clients say. It was just me trying to be like, and I'm sure other people did it. I'm not saying like I was the first person to do this, but I remember thinking, how can I share my client results without sharing pictures or scale weight? So it's like, I'm just going to screenshot what they say in Apotheo and put hashtag things clients say. Whereas now it's like, well, obviously you would do that. Obviously you'd share client quotes. But back in the day, like, that wasn't a thing. It was like, well, let's just try this and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. You see that. I remember seeing you do that, and I can't think of anyone else doing it before. Yeah, and I remember then seeing other coaches do it, almost like reframing it differently. Look what my client said, and but I get that as well, and it's really interesting hearing about the sides and everything, and how people get triggered by what you say. And I always think that's like, and it's a prime example of that, coach or mentoring, because at that point then they're not quite in that space to have a conversation about it. Whereas I know that you'd be open to having conversations about these certain topics and things that people are saying, whereas they're just like, no, get away, like, unfollow. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I find the spaces really fascinating. And just social media in general, but the way people react to things, the little cliques that form and everything like that, just, it fascinates me. If I had more time, I'd love to like properly study stuff like that.
I think it would be a scary place to go. Like, I don't know about you, but I've kind of found this place of like, I kind of go on social media, do what I need to do, but I cannot get lost. I don't get too involved with anyone really that much in the industry. I have people that I really respect and stuff, but I kind of just try and stay on the outskirts of things. Whereas in the past, I definitely thought I need to be in everything so that like I'm always present. Whereas now I'm kind of like, I'm not gonna indulge in a lot of this stuff, because actually it's not great for my own headspace to know that people get pissed off by me, but also like it doesn't serve you when you, like, I wouldn't like to be in a clique, like, or one of those little camps, because if you're in a camp, you can very easily get kicked out and cancelled out of that camp. And especially now, I'd rather just not be in one in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. It's an easy place to get, like, say, triggered as well if you're in there, and then you start to, I've definitely done this before, and you create stuff off the back of like responding to something, and you're like, then you're just in that world of creating content off the back of being triggered, and it's never a good place.
Yeah. Do you know what? Weirdly, I had this conversation with my best friend who's not in the space at all. She used to compete with me years ago, but she's not at all. And on Sunday, and she said, oh yeah, we were talking about someone had put a passive aggressive post up, and I said, I'm sure I've done that. She said, you definitely used to do that, but you never do it anymore. But I definitely remember always thinking in the past I could see that, and I was like, gosh, it was so visible. But in the moment, you're like, this is fine.
Yeah.
It's not
You get people
fine.
messaging you, who are you talking about here? I'm like, what? Yeah, no, yeah, definitely get that. But it's cool to know about like the way that you approach that now. I mean, I get sucked in sometimes, and I'm like, I need to pull back out now. Spend my time in other industries, which I find much more. And then when I go back into the fitness space, you can there's so many more ideas outside of the fitness bubble. You're like, oh, these some of these things.
Who knew?
But yeah, no, I think we should talk about Apotheo, otherwise Adam will be like, what did you talk about? So before the life of Apotheo, how was stuff for you? Like, what did you do? Well, how did you coach?
Gosh, do you know what I used to do? Oh my gosh. So I had a coach the first time I competed, right? And what he used to do was he'd email me first on a Sunday and a Tuesday, I think it was, and like, hi Maria, just checking in how things are going. And that was it. And then it would just be an email, and he would send me like a PDF training program. So this was 2014 or something. So when I started online coaching, I kind of didn't know any different. My boyfriend at the time was a PT and did some online stuff, so I learned a little bit from him. But realistically, I just did emails. I think I had a Word document that I sent out to people, and they'd have to answer the questions via email. And so they would send me emails, and I would do it at the weekend, because at the time I was doing my full-time lecturing job and kind of started coaching on the side. So I would do that, and then the thing that I always used to mess up on was payments. And I don't know if you ever did this, but like I don't even think I used Stripe, or I had nothing integrated, right? And I am crap at technology in general. Like, that's not a limiting belief, that's just a fact. And I can't keep on top of these things. So I would have my payments going like into direct debits into a bank account, and then I would be doing things via email every weekend. And then at the time I was actually prepping people, which makes me uncomfortable now, but at the time I was. So they would require more like frequent check-ins, and it would just be me trying to like leave a reminder to myself to like check in with them or do something like that. And then I would just do training programs, like an Excel training program, which to be honest hasn't changed hugely. And that was really it. I think when I tried to like give them extra help, it was just like I would just write it in an email. So I know we'll talk about resources and stuff, but I wouldn't have any tangible stuff to like send people to get them to think about mindfulness or whatever. I would just be like, oh, you could try doing this with your meal. And it was just all written in an email, which obviously now is very time consuming and silly. But at the time, I think that's how I did it.
Yeah, I think that's not too far off. Like most people, like pre-softwares were probably like, it was not even PDFs, was it? It was just email.
Yeah, but like at least some people, I don't know what you did, but at least some people use like Google Drive. I didn't even do that when I first started. It was literally like, oh, okay, that's probably been about 12 weeks. Here's a new training program. I mean, I must have had a system to know that like when they needed training programs and stuff, but I don't remember what my system was. So it kind of been great.
Then since then, so once you then get into the world of Apotheo, how's that then helped the way you coach?
Well, I mean, I don't really have to think about that much anymore apart from coaching. Genuinely, like that is the thing for me, of just that I want to focus on my coaching and I want to focus on education. I don't want to focus on checking if someone's paid or if they've reminded them to do their check-in form on time, or just little things like that, or being able to communicate with everyone at once rather than having to go through and like individually speak to people. For me, it's the organization of it all. It's like the number one thing. I just don't like to think about that stuff. But realistically, obviously, the big thing for me when I started with Apotheo was the fact that you could add resources. And again, at the time, nobody really used resources in their coaching, whereas now it's much more of a done thing. But I remember thinking, oh, I could put some stuff on mindful eating in the resources folder. And now, as a team, a coaching team, we've probably got a couple of hundred resources that we have around our core pillars like mindfulness, compassion. And I just did a talk actually for Adam for Apotheo on emotional eating, and I talked about some of the resources that we'll have in Apotheo there. So surfing the urge, choice point model, stuff like that. Basically anything that I found in my research where I was like, oh, that's a really cool technique, then I would make it into a document, turn it into a resource, keep it there. And then when somebody else had the same struggles, which of course a lot of our clients have the same struggles, I would say, oh, go to that resource. And now I mentor people and they say, oh, I should create a bank of resources. And it's like, no, like just see what your clients need, create something in response to something that you keep hearing about, and then make a resource on it. Don't think, oh, well, Emilia's got 300 resources or whatever it is, so I need to go and create these resources before I coach. So that's a huge thing for me. But then I was thinking about this about it too. I remember speaking to Adam years ago of saying, oh, could we have maybe an option where people only track their protein and not their calories? And he was like, oh yeah, I'll put that in. And I thought, now most of my clients don't track their macros at all, right? But at the time, like when I first started with Apotheo, all of the apps were like nutrition was only tracking. And I remember starting with Apotheo thinking, oh, there's scope to do different things here. And obviously, like Adam's obviously great with that in the sense of just being like, oh yeah, that makes sense to have a protein target and not calories in, and incorporating all of that stuff. So I think for me, all of the non-quantifiable stuff is how I use Apotheo the most. Just like, and my coaches use it even more in the sense of they all do like the Loom feedback now, and they do some more stuff than I do, because I'm 36 and I'm old school.
Well, that makes me
Sorry.
So yeah, no, I completely get that. With like resources side of things, I think from you explain that really well in terms of when the coaches are thinking, oh, I need this bank of things, or like I need to create all these exercise videos and whatever, and you're just like, well, that's going to waste a hell of a lot of time. Just do the things that people are asking for, and then you don't have to repeat that. So yeah, I like that. Is there anything else that you found when you're using it, like some of the habit like tracking settings and things like that? Do you incorporate those into the coaching?
Yeah, we have like habit collections and stuff. So we'll have maybe like intuitive eating collections, so like the kind of core principles around that. I mean, we use habits all the time, whether it be like, again, our habit list is just ridiculous. So we do a lot of things around meditation, obviously mindfulness, self-compassion. So we will do things like, okay, habit might be something like, okay, practice body functionality once a day for some people, or it might, for other people, it might be like do your morning routine, or it might be some nervous system regulation. And so, I mean, I would say 80% of my coaching is the habits, to be honest. Aside from like the feedback that they get from me, obviously, it's like I'll have a client that never has nutrition. They'll have nutrition guidelines, but they'll be in the habits: 3 protein meals a day, vegetables and fruit, the basic nutrition guidelines. And then we never really look at that again. And it's all of the other habits, plus obviously the weekly feedback, that is the coaching stuff. And obviously training alongside of that. So yeah, I mean, again, I need the habits. I was speaking to someone I was mentoring recently, and I said, oh, does your program that you use have habits to build? And she went, yeah, I can give them 3 habits a week. I was like, oh my gosh, like what about the rest? Like and I don't love to bombard people with it, but some of my clients, especially if they're working on their relationship with food, they're not tracking. They might have like 10 or 12 habits like to tick off every week, and they just go in every day and check them off. And they might just be really basic ones, like going outside. I don't know. They're very, very varied in terms of what they are, or they might be things like supplements, etc. But realistically, I'm like, if I only had 3 habits and a check-in, clients would be like, what on earth am I paying you for? And they wouldn't, because my feedback is always excellent, obviously. But I'll like the majority of my coaching is like the habits that you build, because that's what it is, right? It's process-based stuff. So never understand like these platforms that are like, oh, well, here's the meal plan, here's the training, and here's 3 habits that you stick to. And the habits are always things like 10,000 steps, or like tracking your food, or whatever it is. And it's like, none of that stuff is the process-based goals that actually lead to behavior change. It's all just like the outcome stuff. So yeah, we love them. And like, again, we use them predominantly. Like that's pretty much what we always use.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's one of the platform itself is like the customizability. Is that a word? I don't know how you can customize.
Yeah, I think it is a word. Yeah, let's go with it. If it's not, it should be.
I'm making it up. Is a huge draw for where it was for myself, and then the coaches that we work with now are looking at the things that are coming up with clients that are coming on, and then going, oh, we need to change the sign up questionnaire, we need to add this questionnaire, we need to tweak that. Is there elements of that you've done to your service, like you customize parts of it?
Yeah. So over time, like the types of clients that we work with change. So for example, Denai is a psychological health coach, and Rosalind is a dietitian, and Becca is almost a psychotherapist, but she's a counselor. And so some of the work that they do is going to be different to the type of work that like I do, and the type of information that they need is slightly different. So as a team, we'll all have like a baseline sign up form, check-in form, etc. But then these are going to be obviously varied according to the type of stuff that they specifically need, the information that they need. And I know for Roz, as a dietitian, she's actually had to take some stuff out because she works with clinical eating disorders, and some stuff can be quite triggering for her. So for her clients, so she's had to change quite a lot of her stuff. And then over time, like I have some of my mentoring clients on there. So some of the people that I mentor, I'll either do coaching alongside of that, or they'll just be mentoring them separately. But for them to have what's helpful is to have like a combined check-in form. So they'll have like, because I don't believe you can fully mentor someone if you're not looking after their health as well. I don't like, I think sometimes the mentoring stuff is actually just working on their health. That's still mentoring them in some way. And so for me, like having check-in forms that are like 50-50 of like, this is your personal stuff, this is your business stuff, and then feeding back to both of these things is really, really helpful. So yeah, I think there's never been a client that I've kind of thought, I don't know how this would work. It's so malleable, and that's obviously really important to me. And again, the variety of coaches that I work with is quite vast.
Yeah. And how do you get feedback from your clients about what they think about it, how to use it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't ask specifically for feedback, but they all like love it. And clients that have been with me and have been with other coaches, like they take much more advantage of like resources and stuff like that. Everyone, when they start, they're like, oh my God, there's so much information, because we have it set up on Apotheo, so they don't get the resources straight away. But obviously, like you do, like anyone would, as soon as you get given stuff, you're like, oh my gosh, I want to look at it all. And then they're like, oh my God, there's this many resources and there's all of this information and I don't really know where to start. But then they all like love the fact that there is so much information, and it's like, oh, like if they were going out for dinner or whatever, we'll have a meal with a resource about going out for meals, and they're like, oh, I love that, I could just go and find that resource. And so they generally love it. I've never had any feedback about Apotheo that they're like that there's something that they don't like, as far as I can remember in my living memory, which is pretty good considering I've probably had feedback that they don't like me more than than the app. So not that happens often, obviously, but I am human.
No, I don't believe it. Yeah, no, I think that covers like a lot of the bases. Is there anything else that you think about it, or that really you like about their platform itself?
I'm just thinking.
That's all right.
I like Adam. Does that count?
Yeah, I think that is a big part of it.
It genuinely is, right? So for me, technologically illiterate at the best of times, but also without sounding quite conceited, like some of the stuff that we all will do as coaches now, like before it wasn't really often that done. And for me to be able to message Adam and say, is this a possibility that you can do this? There's never been a point where he said, well, no. I mean, that maybe says a lot about his boundaries, but like there's never been anything where he's like, no, like that, we're just not going to do that. He's very open to making the platform malleable to like the type of coaching that is important to me and our team. And so for me, that's really important. I know that like other platforms have come and gone, and I've always looked at them and just thought, it still doesn't, it's not holistic. Like no other platform is holistic and malleable as much as Apotheo is. So there's nowhere else I could go with the support that Adam gives either, in the sense of just maybe like, this is not working, and he's got a team of eight women emailing him saying this doesn't work, or my client said this, and he handles it very well. So like genuinely, that like the person side of things, more like the person side of things and the organization side of things and the holistic side of things, those for me are like the key things. And I think the girls would all say the same, like they very much value like his support on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a huge part of it. I can always remember ever since I started using it, that level's not changed. It's always been like, and he's actively said the feedback, he wants it. He's like, I seek it out. He's like, it's great. If this is something is not quite right or not how we want it, I want to know so that we can look at changing it or tweaking it. And he's made like a visualization in my head, because you've got obviously your team, and then there's certain other teams that I work with who all use Apotheo, and I can just imagine like, and he's always like, yeah, no worries, like cool, and he'll always open and honest and answer it in a way, and you think, wow.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. I don't, especially like emails and stuff. So like such a swift turnaround, and I'm like, how do you do that? Teach me your ways.
It's good. Cool, awesome. So how can coaches find out more about you, your coaching, EIQ, all the other stuff you do?
Best place really is my Instagram, Emilia Thompson PhD. But on my website, emilia.fitness, we've got quite a lot of free resources. Some of them are examples of the resources that we use on Apotheo. So if you go into the education page of my website, then you will see some of the examples that we use. And you can make your own versions of that if you want to do that. And then EIQ Nutrition, Instagram is just EIQ_nutrition, or the website is eiqnutrition.com.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been great. You're cool to get your insights into this. I'm sure we'll do some more stuff, if that's okay with you. Like, it'd be awesome to do some things in the group as well and get some other people involved. So yeah, one thing that I wanted to say, actually, I just thought of, and I feel like it would be silly to not mention it. Sorry. It's all right.
Sorry, welcome to my head. Is something that I've really found really useful recently in the resources stuff is the ability to like use audio files and stuff. So I've started teaching meditation, and now I can record meditation tracks and put them into like well, it's not called meditation, but like a version of a meditation folder. And so my clients now, if I put in their habits, like, I want you to do this meditation 3 times a week or whatever, then they can go into the meditation folder and they've got all the audio tracks, which I found genuinely really, really helpful. I definitely think that this is not about what I've seen in other spaces is people like trying to sell like coaching programs by saying, oh, I've got all of these educational videos and all of these recipe ebooks and all of this stuff. And it's like bollocks that anybody uses that stuff. Like, our clients don't use that stuff, right? They realistically, person-centered coaching is directing people to things that we're going to support them in that moment, not here's a bank of 300 videos and 5,000 recipes and all of this stuff. So for me, being able to direct people to like, oh, one specific audio file that's not like this super intellectual, like overly, like, what's the word, designed video. It's just me sitting in a room saying, okay, this is meditation tracking, very easy. I found that really, really helpful. That's only something that we started incorporating in the last 8 months or something, but that's been really useful. So I just wanted to add that in. You can always edit that out and stick it somewhere else.
That's fine.
Sorry about that. That's how my brain works.
It's an important part, and I agree massively with that. Like the whole recipe book resources thing, I've never really got that. We bought into the whole thing of like, you get the monthly recipe guides, and I know anyone who's ever used one, let alone like looked at it, it's like,
oh no, it's just obscene, and it's just something fancy for people to sell, but that's not what people need when they need coaching. Like, if you want a recipe book, you can Google it, but it's like, if you want to be a person-centered coach, you have to be able to meet someone where they are, right, and then direct them to something specific that is helpful for them, which again is nice about Apotheo.
Cool, good.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Right. Let me stop this one, and then I won't edit it. So it's authentic.
Welcome to my brain.